Welcome back. Let's talk taxes. Despite a GOP win on tax reform in the House, not all Republican lawmakers were able to get behind the plan. Some lawmakers argued the bill would hit their suburban constituents outside big cities especially hard. And here with his take on this is Atlanta-based radio host Eric Von Hassler. Eric, thanks for joining us today. And I just want to start with, first of all, where do you stand on this issue?
Well, look, I think I'm disappointed in the GOP tax bill, to be quite honest with you. I mean, a few months ago, Republicans were promising sweeping tax reform, and now we get a tax cut bill that maybe nibbles at the edges, I think. I would like to see something more radical happen. So, for the most part, I'm not impressed.
Something more radical. So the House has passed its tax reform plan, as you know. Now it's in the hands of the GOP-led Senate. Both versions actually calling for a cut in corporate taxes and individual tax cuts. And then there's the Senate version, which includes a repeal of the individual mandate in Obamacare. Based on your listeners, what are suburban voters saying about this tax reform plan? What impact will this have on people living in the suburbs of America's major cities like Atlanta?
Well, let me say, I'm not going to be silly enough to try to speak for my listeners. I have a lot of different listeners with different points of view. But the point that I want to make to you is that did they ever even, I don't know, did they ever debate the idea of a flat tax? Did they ever debate the idea of a fair tax? We were promised something bigger than this, is my point of view on this. And this is what I talk to my listeners about. I don't know how many agree with me or disagree with me, but that's my point of view on it. Why, when Donald Trump was running for president, he said he was going to challenge us to think big again. We used to talk about reforming taxation. But what I would say to you is that there is no fiscally conservative party, viable party left in this country. We're just nibbling at the edges on this. This is another tax bill that I can look at and find some things that I like and some things that I don't like. But there's nothing reforming about this bill at all. It's just it's built on top of a status quo, and it's built so that people who have influence can maintain influence. That's my problem with it. I can't speak for my listeners.
Right. It sounds like you're saying go big or go home. Be bold with your plan. And as you were mentioning, you wanted to see something bigger, like going for the flat tax or a fair tax. What do suburban voters desire in regard to tax reform? I mean, I know you hear people on a daily basis on your show. Do they view the House plan as something that will meet their demands? And do they view the Senate plan as something to continue to be worked on, particularly as it relates to the individual mandate of Obamacare being repealed in that proposal?
Can I be honest with you?
Sure, be honest, of course.
I don't think that most people who have an opinion on this tax bill have read it. I think it depends on which point of view they've heard most. I think it depends on whether they've heard more from Chuck Schumer or they've heard more from Mitch McConnell or Paul Ryan. What I want to say to you and everyone out there is that the argument has not changed enough. Paul Ryan talks about putting more money back in my pocket. What I want to say to Paul Ryan and every other Republican is, you're not putting money in my pocket, you're leaving money in my pocket. And there is a grand canyon between those points of view. And that's the problem with this tax bill. It's still the same old, same old. I apologize if you wanted to talk to me about something else, but that's my point of view.
Oh, don't
it's
apologize.
The same old thing.
Yeah, you're definitely free to express your concerns and your perspective. In many suburban areas, of course, some Republicans in those areas view the president and the Republican leadership, much as you do, with some degree of skepticism right now, since they haven't delivered on some of the items that they talked about during the campaign. So as Republicans move forward and face this narrow road to pass tax reform, what reaction can they expect from these suburban voters should they even fail to pass that piece of legislation?
Oh, I think it's not going to look good after not being able to do anything with health care. That's the problem again. So much of this GOP tax bill now out of the House, going to the Senate, so much of it is about timing, right? What's important here is that they get something passed. And that's why they're all starting to back off of the large rhetoric from the campaign, back off of some of the things that they were saying a few months ago, because now it's not really about what's in the bill. It's about how quickly we get a bill out there, because we all know that next year we're going to start very quickly with the primary season, and then we're going to get into the 2018 elections, and that's all this is about. So as far as I'm concerned, this is not tax reform, and if it's not tax reform, I'm not interested. When you ask about people in the suburbs, that's all a matter of which message they respond to more. Yeah. It's not really going to be about what's really in the bill.
Finally, do you think their perspectives, the suburban areas, will it loom large in 2018?
Yes, of course it will. And I think in general, people think they want to drain the swamp, but I don't think people know what that means. In order to drain the swamp, there's only one way to drain the swamp, and that is to reduce the size of the federal government. And this populist Republican Party we have right now doesn't have any interest in that. Populism means give the people what they want. What they want is tax write-offs, and they want their entitlements. As long as we have that, we're not going to have real tax reform.
Eric Von Hessler, good to hear from you. You're Atlanta-based radio show host, and a lot of people obviously listening to you today as well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.